Money moves. Never let you look at life. Keep it always cool. Yo, success ain't a straight line, they flip their feet. Turn setbacks to comebacks, now they're straight greats. From the grind to the shine, watch the pros improve. On unconventional money, it's the next gen groove. Genius minds outside the lines. On unconventional money, we rise and shine. Unconventional money moves, where success rewrites the rules.
Christopher, welcome. Happy to have you here today to talk about everything learning.
I appreciate you having me, Josh. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, of course. And we were just chatting about what your focus is on, and it has to do with explain a little bit about what you're working on and what your level of competency is, because we were just chatting, everything outside of our level of competency is just opinion.
That's right. That's right. So my company, Flagship LMS, is a company that does full service learning management system hosting, administration, and course building. So a learning management system, for those of your users who aren't typically familiar with it, most people have probably experienced, if you're in the workforce, if you experienced a learning management system, you just may not have known that you were involved with it. For example, if you go into HR, sometimes they'll put you down in front of a computer and you'll do some sexual harassment training, or maybe you are working at a warehouse and you'll do some OSHA safety training, that kind of thing. The platform, the software platform that you took that training on, is a learning management system. And so that's what we do. And so my very narrow sphere of competence is online learning, learning management systems, corporate training, that kind of thing. Very, I'm not the guy you invite to a cocktail party.
Yeah. Is that so is that kind of like maybe those trainings that maybe I sat on when I was in corporate America and I would just like click through everything and not read it, those sort of things?
Great question. So we don't create the training that you didn't take. We just create the software that training you didn't take sits on. So
Okay, that's way
right.
different.
It's very different. So our job, and one of the things that we offer, is to help corporations overcome that penchant for creating training that people just click through and then go get a cup of coffee while the video plays. We try to make it something that is engaging, something that is useful, and also something that is succinct. Because workers these days, well, any of us, adults in general, don't have the time to sit through an hour's worth of fluff. What we need is the meat that will help us improve our lives, our jobs, our performance right now, in the moment. And we don't have the time for something that's kind of further on down the line. So our job is to help corporations make better training so that we don't have people, say, God, I can't believe I have to sit down in front of e-learning again.
Yeah, I mean, I have to do continuing education every year, and it's like 12 hours, and it probably takes me 2 hours to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It's
just
painful.
skip to the end and take the test.
Exactly. And arguably, I mean, we all do that. It's a survival mechanism, but arguably the information that should be being imparted is very important information, ostensibly because it's going to prevent potential legal issues with the company, or maybe it's just going to improve your performance as an employee. But if you can't take the training, then we can't improve the workforce, which means we can't achieve the goals and objectives that the organization is trying to reach.
To me, like, the first thing that pops in my head is like you're almost attempting to reshape human behavior.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly what we're attempting to do. And it is a necessity. For example, one of the great cliches, but nevertheless a truism, is that McDonald's French fries taste the same everywhere in the world. And the reason behind that is because they have created a checklist, and they have a group of employees who they have trained to follow that checklist. And they don't deviate from it. And that's an important thing. We want to adjust skills, beliefs, attitudes, knowledge, and habits. And if we can do that, then your organization, whatever it happens to be, could be the Boy Scouts, could be a Fortune 500 company, you can deliver whatever your product is with consistent results to every customer. And that is ultimately the hallmark of a truly good organization.
Yeah, I was looking because I just bought some checklist book that I think was pretty good. You probably have read it or heard of it. It's like the Manifesto Checklist. Is that the name of the title?
Atul Gawande, yeah, exactly. I recommend it on every podcast that I happen to be a guest on because that's one of the things that is it is the bedrock of our company, absolutely. And in fact, it would be great if you gave just a quick synopsis of it, or I'd be happy to do it because I think your listeners, all of them, would really benefit from it.
I've only read one chapter. We just had
Mhm.
our son's like 3 months old, so not a whole lot of
Oh.
reading is going on right now.
Yeah, at least nothing that doesn't involve bears going shopping. But um, the book is wonderful. It's so it was written by a surgeon, and what he had the problem he was attempting to solve was that there was a large percentage of post-operative complications in hospitals, primarily brought about because surgical teams were uh, tired, were stressed, and they didn't have a set of standard procedures that they were following. And he looked at industries like the aviation industry, where an airline pilot has multiple checklists that they follow: pre-flight checklists, in-flight checklists, post-flight checklists, checklists for landing, checklists if there's specific emergencies in the air. And at no time was a pilot expected to be able to react to situations off the top of their head. There was a procedure that had been tested that if they followed it would guarantee or almost guarantee a successful outcome. And so he implemented the same thing with the operations side of hospital functioning. And what I mean, simple things, little checklist things like, for example, count the number of sponges before the operation, count the number of sponges after the operation, and the numbers should match. And if they don't, let's investigate. And so these kinds of procedures are incredibly important for every organization because your employees are going to be stressed. They're going to be tired. They're going to be thinking about things that occurred, in their lives personally, and maybe they're not 100% focused on the job. But you still need, as an organization, to deliver consistent performance across the board. And so the checklist helps everybody in the organization pull on the oar and do it in the exact same way.
Yeah, I mean, consistency is key to anything. I mean, I create checklists even though I know how to do things just to make sure I don't have to think about it. Because
Yeah.
you have your
Yeah.
checklist, it's really hard to mess it up if
Mhm.
everything is checked off.
Well, and that's great. And it's good for you personally, but it is also important for any organization that wants to scale because you, as the founder, are at some point going to be task saturated. You're going to be unable to keep up with all of the things that need to happen within the organization, but you still have the means or the need to get those things accomplished in the way that they need to get done to deliver your product and service. So the checklist allows you to pick anybody up off the street, sit them down in front of whatever tool or piece of software, hand them that checklist, and ideally that checklist is detailed enough that they can just walk through each of the individual steps and perform whatever task or function needs to occur. And you, as a supervisor, or your supervisors, can take a look at that checklist and ensure that everything was done correctly according to the company procedure.
So were you already doing this before the book? Was the book the inspiration? Like, walk us through your process to implementing that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the book really was the impetus to sit down and make this the focus of the company. Before that, we did kind of have some things that we did in the same order, but it wasn't systemic. And the important part that what it allowed me to do, and I only really discovered this after I started to implement these checklists, is it allowed me to sleep at night because I could, we have in my organization, if we're bringing a learning management system a whole from one organization into ours, we're taking all their user data, we're taking all their completion data, all their course data, everything, something that they've maybe invested years of time in developing, and we're bringing that into our environment. And there is the potential for huge pitfalls along the way. They could lose years of that data if we don't do our job correctly. And if we don't have a checklist that details every step of the process, I, as the owner of the company, I can't sleep at night. because I am concerned that there's going to be a huge lawsuit pending when I, make a mistake and we lose all of that client's previous data. So the checklist allows me peace of mind. I know it's being done exactly the same way every single time, and we know that that system works.
So you're not sleeping until you read the book?
It was tough. I mean, every new startup will tell you that you don't get a lot of sleep, but yes, now that we have got 8 years under our belt and we've got checklists for absolutely every process in our organization, yeah, I do get a lot more sleep. I didn't have gray hair before I started the company, so
No. It's not because of the company, I hope.
yeah, being an entrepreneur can be stressful, but the checklist will help eliminate a lot of that stress. So start early. Don't wait like I did.
Yeah, so you started 8 years ago, so you were a couple years in when, the whole world shut down. To me, that probably was a benefit.
Oh, huge, huge. It was a terrible thing for the world and for society. It was a wonderful thing for e-learning, and for companies like mine, when everybody had to immediately pivot to online training, yeah, it was a pretty big windfall for us. So I'm, you know, COVID's an awful thing, but from a professional standpoint, I didn't mind it.
So how did you handle that inflow? Because everyone was like, "Oh, I gotta now download Zoom, I gotta download this, I gotta"
Yeah,
wear
for us, it
pajama
was.
bottoms with, professional clothes.
I've seen that actually. I've seen that a lot. No, it went very well. We at that point had been in business for a couple of years, and we had our checklists down. So onboarding new clients was seamless. Moving from their previous platform to ours was seamless. It actually came at a really good time for us. We weren't at all fumbling or struggling to figure out how to do things. We've already got the systems in place, and so as fast as clients could come to us, we could get them on board and up and running. So it was good for us.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes boring businesses are the best kinds of businesses, and this is one that's definitely not like a mainstream business. Like, what was the inspiration to start this 8 years ago?
So I've been actually working with learning management systems since 2007. And believe it or not, this is one of those boring businesses that actually is pretty mainstream. There are lots of learning management system vendors out there. You don't hear a lot about us. I like to think of, or I like to sort of say, we are the plumbers of the e-learning world. Nobody wants to do it, but everybody needs them from time to time. So I started. I was in the Marine Corps for 12 years, and I got out in 2002, and I went overseas because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I decided to teach English. And so I have lived and worked in Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, and one of the during the course of that, in about 2007, I ran across for the very first time this piece of software called the learning management system in one of the schools that I was at. And it was as if the clouds had parted and the sun began to shine and the angels were singing. The benefits of this platform were absolutely were huge, and they were inevitable, or excuse me, uh, were right there in front of me. It was very clear to me how much easier this particular software could make a teacher's job, a teacher's life. And so I embraced it wholeheartedly, and I went from being a teacher to being a learning management system administrator. And so I started working with the same platform that I work with now in 2007. And then I've done that around the world for, K through 12s, higher education. I've done it for the Peace Corps. I was their LMS administrator for the Peace Corps in Washington, D.C. I've done it for a number of different organizations, other LMS companies. And then I am now, at the 8-year mark, or 8 years ago, I said, it's time for me to do this for myself. I've got enough experience working for other people. I can figure out how to do this myself. And so, and it's been a great ride. I've enjoyed it, but it's also been my life for, a lot of years now, 16, 17 years, something like that.
Did you have like a background in this? Did you teach yourself how to do all of this? Like, how do you just jump into this? Like when the skies parted?
No, that's a great question. So, the a learning our learning management, we use what's called the Moodle learning management system, and Moodle is just an acronym. It stands for Modular Object Oriented Dynamic Learning Environment, and it was started by a guy named Martin Dugiamas. He's from Australia. He worked in the outback, and his class lessons were delivered to him by airplane. And he said, "You know what? We can definitely do this better." And so when he got his PhD, he and a couple of other people developed this um, platform, and they made it open source. And open source means that it's free for anybody. Anybody can go to their site. They can download it. They can set it up on their own server, and you can have for free your own learning management system. But it's a little bit complicated to be able to set it up and make sure that it's running correctly and that it's updated, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's kind of where we come in. And so did I have any background in it? No, because when I started with it, learning management systems were brand new. They really hadn't been invented. This was Moodle came out in 2004, and it was one of the very first learning management systems. So I kind of got on board about 3 years later, but it was still in its infancy. And even these days, the people that work for me, I don't need degrees for you to be proficient in the software. You just need to be able to find it somewhere or download it yourself on your local machine and become familiar with the settings, and I can teach you everything else you need to know. So doesn't require a degree, but it does require proficiency in the software.
Proficiency in the software.
Yeah, you need to understand it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, so it's basically like you've created the operating system to allow all of these learning systems to work. Is that kind of how it is?
Actually, that credits me with a lot more intelligence than I have. In fact, we just use a piece of software that was created by someone else, and our job is to make that as streamlined and as effective as we possibly can for clients who don't know as much about it. So what I encourage, and I encourage this for really every organization that uses a learning management system. I personally don't think that you as a CEO should ever hire a training team. I don't think it's not in your best interest economically. It's not in your best interest from an educational standpoint. Here's why. If you hire an instructional designer, which is the person who creates those boring courses that you just click through and don't pay attention to, that instructional designer is going to cost you $65,000 a year in salary plus benefits. And they will be able to create, if they're prolific, they'll be able to create 2 courses a week, maybe maximum. Whereas if you hire an organization like us who specializes in that, and that's all we do, and we have a ton of people on staff who can do this, who can create courses, we can put out for just your organization, we can put out 11 or 12 courses a month. And we cost $25,000. So for us, we can do everything your training can do. We can do it better. We can do it faster. We have people on staff who specialize in all kinds of very specific things that will allow you to have really good quality training. And the price point is substantially lower. And you don't have the hassle of dealing with employees. You just have to set up a contract with us, put your subject matter experts in touch with our course builders, and let us go to town.
Yeah. Now with AI, how's that changed things for your company?
It's huge. It makes life a lot easier for us. So artificial intelligence, the one thing that it does not do is it will not take the place of a subject matter expert. It will not take the place of a teacher, or even your corporate trainer. But what it will do is allow much more rapid creation of your content and your courses. So in the past, before large language models became ubiquitous, it was, we could do a course a week maybe, because all of the content had to be kind of you know curated from your subject matter experts documentation, and that would involve us having to read through all that documentation and the PowerPoints and the PDFs and everything that you've collected over a lifetime of your specialty, and then for us to go through with you to pull out the salient details. It was a long involved process. Now with artificial intelligence, we can have those documents summarized, we can have the salient details bullet formed, we can give those to the subject matter expert to say, look, can you take a look at this and give us a reality check? Is this in fact correct? And then from that, we can very quickly say, okay, now we want to create these types of learning objects, and we would like you to create the assessments associated with them, et cetera. We can turn that whole course building process that used to take us a week into an hour phone call. And then once we've got that outline, it's just very simple for us to plug that into the course, into the learning management system. So we can rapidly develop your courses.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how fast things can move now versus back in the day, you'd have
Yeah.
to find someone, hire them, well, vet them, hire them, and then wait on them. Now it's just kind of like you could create something from scratch using that subject matter expert and essentially have the AI do it in real time.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And what it will do is it will create the outline, and it will create your assessments, and it will create all of those course elements, but it won't actually assemble the course for you. So that's where our people come in as well. And we have a group of people that are very skilled in andragogy. One of the terms that a lot of training teams get incorrect is pedagogy. Technically refers to the training of children, whereas andragogy refers to the training of adults. And the principles behind andragogy are a lot different than those behind pedagogy. And so it's really important that someone be familiar with those principles so that they can ensure that the content that's being generated by AI is meeting a certain set of standards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, most of the training videos that folks watch, including myself, are just like to check a box. However, you're looking to like change human behavior by looking at the psychology of the avatar for which that subject matter is geared for. So, how are you working through that in order to change company culture?
That's a tough one because changing company culture is not something that my organization can do. Um, we can help you change company culture, but that needs to it needs to be much more involved than just a couple of e-learning courses. And I see this all the time. The learning management systems for a lot of the organizations that we deal with are focused primarily at the lower echelon of your employees. So the first line, the frontline troops, the sales folks, the truck drivers, the guys in the warehouse, and very, very infrequently do we see training put on the learning management system that is focused on helping middle management do their jobs better. And we almost never see training put on the learning management system that will assist the C-suite. But the problem is that the culture in your organization starts from the C-suite and it trickles all the way down, right through your middle management down to the lower levels. And so all the e-learning in the world is not going to change the attitudes, beliefs, knowledge, skills of your workforce if the principles in that training are not being lived up to and are not being visible from the C-suite and the middle management. So, just simple example. You can have all the e-learning in the world about somebody coming in on time to work and making sure that they're punctual. But if you see all of your senior representatives of the company coming in an hour late, an hour and 15 minutes late, you're just not changing the culture. And so the training has to support the belief system that's already in place.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough one. Are most folks coming to you like at the companies like they're already like ready to move on? Or are you having to like not sell them, but like convince them the benefit of doing this way, especially for people who started their company like 30, 40 years ago? And it's like, well, we've already always done it this way. We're profitable. Why would we change it now? It's kind of like getting lost. left behind with the tech.
Yeah, no, you're right, Joshua. It happens, and it always happens in the same stages. So, if a company has never used a learning management system before, the very first phase that they always go through is we're going to take all of our offline training, we're just going to put it online, and we're going to call it e-learning. So they'll take all the PowerPoints that they used to deliver in the conference room, all the PDFs that they used to print out and hand out to their employees, and they just put them online and say, okay, now it's in e-learning course. It's not, and it's not effective, but it is always the very first step. And so our job is to try and get people as fast as we can through that first phase and get them to develop actual content that is that's going to effectively change their workforce for the better using the information that they already have. But yes, there is very seldom a lot of uptake from our suggestions about the C-suite and the middle management being the figurehead, if you will, being the poster children for making effective use of e-learning. We don't often see that, and that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to hit as many podcasts as possible, because that's a message that I feel needs to get out. It's leadership by example at its very most fundamental, and when it comes to corporate training, not a lot of organizations embrace that.
So, what's the first thing you say to them for someone who's kind of skeptical about all this?
Mm-hmm. First thing I say is, show me the documentation in your company that articulates where you are as a company and where you would like to be in 5 years. If you have that written down, e-learning can help you bridge that gap. And that is the indication that your company is probably ready for a truly robust e-learning platform. If you don't have such a document, that doesn't mean that you don't have goals and objectives. What it means is that maybe there is not a lot of clarity associated with those goals and objectives, and or there's a disconnect between what the C-suite sees as important and what the troops actually know. Because if the troops can't say instantly, yes, here are the goals and objectives that we're trying to achieve, if every person in your organization can't point to that document and isn't trying to embody those principles and achieve those objectives, then you're not going to go anywhere. And so that's the very first thing that is important for us as an organization, is to help you gain clarity so that we can then push that message to everybody in your organization. Everybody's got to hear the same drummer. Everybody's got to be marching in the same direction. If you don't have that, there's very little that e-learning can do for you. So that's our first step.
It's almost like attempting to perfect the game telephone. Are you familiar with that game?
I think I am familiar with that game, and
I tell you, I whisper in your ear a phrase, and then you go around the circle.
I would modify the analogy slightly, because the learning management system eliminates the circle. The learning management system allows every single person in that circle to hear the same message. And so what it really is more a game where the first person is not whispering to somebody else, but rather the first person is clearly articulating the direction that the company is going to be moving in. If they can clearly articulate that, everybody else can hear that message, and the game is over. We can all do whatever it is. I would say that the game of telephone is what happens when you don't have a clearly articulated message, and when you have no learning management system or other means of communicating to your employees. I don't know if that holds water, but that's the closest I can get.
Hey, it's close enough. I mean, you work with over 70 companies or something like that. With these learning management systems that you've created, how are the companies that aren't going to implement this be affected in the next couple of years? Because I know AI is like a hot topic, but the way I view it, it's almost like when the internet came out and production just like kept going up, up, up in terms of the production function of how you can get work done. So if you're not starting to create these checklists, I mean, what do you think is going to happen to these sort of companies?
Oh, so it's purely financial. The biggest impact is on the company's bottom line. Most organizations who are not thinking correctly about corporate training view the training department as a cost center, as something that is sucking up company revenue without giving any kind of a gain back. In reality, the training department is a profit center for your company, because it's a revenue generator, I should say, because what it does is allows you to deliver a better product or service because your employees are all on the exact same sheet of music. They can do everything exactly the way that your company has stipulated they should be done. There's no guesswork. And so if you are an organization who has not embraced a learning management system, what that means is that and particularly if you're an organization with a distributed workforce, you've got people in multiple locations, you have to figure out some effective way of giving the same training to all of these people. If it's a person who has to travel from point A to point B to point C to point D, and deliver that training repetitively, well, now you've got the associated costs with travel and hotels and cars and all the rest of that. And maybe you are able to track how the training is improving, or maybe it's not improving your workforce, or maybe you can't. But with the learning management system, you're bringing everybody to a central location. You're putting them through the same training. You have the same metrics associated with it, so you can see improvements, across the whole company. For example, you can measure, let's say it's sexual harassment training that you're putting people through. You can easily see how many instances or complaints you had prior to the group taking the training, and you can see how many instances you had post training, and then hopefully that number is smaller. The idea is that if it's smaller, you are now saving money from the associated lawsuits or legal costs, settlements, that kind of thing. Safety numbers are exactly the same. You can see before the training how many safety accidents you had in your warehouse. After the training, you can see hopefully that number that has decreased. And so if you do that, those the safety instances that you did not have result in cost savings, result in greater, less worker absenteeism, and the list goes on.
Yeah, I mean, we all run into folks that are like sales cure all, you know, Christopher, if I pull people off for training, they're not out there selling, they're not making the company money. How would you help someone reverse their thought process in thinking that way? Because there are a lot of people that are very driven in that sense of like, oh, we got to make sales, you got to drive revenue. Yet you're taking the training and helping flip it on its head so that folks can see, hey, this training could be actually an asset versus just an expense to a company.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So it's important to realize you're already doing training at your company, whether you know it or not. And you mentioned the example of Salesforce or salespeople. Somebody is already telling them, here is the script that works best when you're selling this particular product, or here is how you approach a customer for the greatest closure rate. Those tips are already being disseminated to everybody in your workforce. All the learning management system does is put them in a format that is more succinct, more professional, and accessible to everybody. And so we're just helping you do more of what you already do, but we can track then the efficacy of that training. When somebody takes it, we can look at what their sales numbers were before the training. We can look at what their sales numbers are after the training. Ideally, after, they should have more sales, because they're being able to they're the recipient of this, of the best practices from the people who have got long-term, lots of years and lots of sales in your company. So ultimately, the LMS is helping you do more of what you already do in your organization, but we just want to do it more efficiently.
So how could someone with like, let's just say they're just starting out, employee one is the owner is the employee, they're just starting out. how would you start building out an LMS so that as they make that first hire, that second hire, their third hire, they're already doing that so they can gain traction and start setting up the foundation from day one versus getting to year 5 and be like, oh no, now we got to build this whole thing.
Exactly. I wouldn't. I would not encourage somebody, an organization who's just starting out, to start with a learning management system. The reason behind that is because an LMS it can be very expensive and it can be difficult to implement. It's one of those things that's best suited for a medium to large size organization. But that doesn't mean that as a brand new business, you shouldn't have training for your employees. So there are ways that you can do training that is effective, but is also cost effective. And here's an example of this. We have clients who have warehouses, and inside the warehouse there are they've got heavy equipment, forklifts, and things like that, ladders that help them get up to the top shelves and those kinds of things. There are certain procedures associated with the maintenance of these, the starting and safe operation of these kinds of things, etc. The way to capture that without using a learning management system is just to take your iPhone and you have a manager or a supervisor film an employee doing that procedure and narrating it as they do it. It can be a 1-minute video, a 2-minute video, doesn't have to be extensive, should not be an hour's worth of training. It should be something that's very simple, very succinct. And then what you do is you take that video and you place it somewhere where it is accessible online to everybody in your organization. Now, it could be a platform like Vimeo, where you get an account for $10 a month and you can put all your videos there and put a link to them, whatever it is. But then the next step, and this is the key one, the next step is to generate a QR code to that video or to that PDF checklist or whatever it is that you're using for your instruction, a QR code. And you take that QR code and now you paste it on the dashboard of that forklift or the dashboard of that truck, or you next to the cash register and the training, for the cash registers, how to close it out at the end of the day, whatever it is. So that QR code sits there, and then anybody who needs it, I got to close tonight. I've never done that before. How do I balance the drawer? They take their phone out, they scan the QR code. There's the video. It's 1 minute. It shows them step by step how to do the thing that they need to do. They take that on board. They power through that task, and then they move on to the next one. It's just-in-time training, and it is easy to do, and it costs virtually nothing for an organization. But you can put those QR codes absolutely everywhere. Next to the copy machine to teach people how to clear the feed jam. It could be next to the coffee pot to teach them how to make coffee in the morning. Whatever it is, you can take a quick iPhone video or a short written checklist. You can put it online where it's accessible, generate that QR code, tape it up, and now your employees are ready to tackle whatever that mission happens to be.
Yeah, we had someone who was in the Navy, and he was talking about when he was doing like computer something, he had a big manual, and he'd have to go from place to place with this big manual and share the manual with each person so they can see like how to fix things. And now you literally can just like whip out your phone, scan something, and see it in real time without having to carry like a big owner's manual with you everywhere you go. It's pretty cool.
It's exactly right. We have a trucking company, and I talk about their hazardous materials drivers are required by federal law to have certain placards placed in certain locations around the truck at all times. And then when they stop, there are certain checklists that they have to go through, inspections that they have to conduct. And yeah, you could have a giant manual for that they carry around, because they've got lots of these things, or you could just put the QR codes on the dashboard of their truck. And if they don't remember what location the placards go in, they scan it. There's a 30-second video that shows them where it goes. Or, the same thing goes for absolutely anything. It's the key is, and this is really important for andragogy, the key is to give the knowledge to the adults at the exact moment that they need it to get whatever task they're immediately on there at that moment, to help them accomplish that task, and then to move on. Adults do not have time for training that's not going to be of immediate benefit.
Yeah, everyone needs what they need right now. from what you've seen working with all these companies, what would you say makes not just a skilled team, but a skilled and high performing team by using these LMS systems that you've implemented for organizations throughout the country? And it sounds like a couple, throughout the world.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have some international clients. The thing that is most important for your team, I think, uh, it doesn't start with the learning management system. It starts with the C-suite, having clarity about what it is that their organization does and how they do it. McDonald's is very clear about how they make the French fries. And if you know that, you can communicate that. And that's what the learning management system helps you do. But the problem that I see with a lot of, and I'm going to call out the C-suites in a lot of organizations, the problem is that truly understanding exactly what you do and how you do it takes sustained consecutive thought. And that's a very difficult thing for a human being to do. You actually have to sit down and think step by step what it is that we do and how do we want to deliver it and what is our customer experience. And it's the kind of thing that you're not going to come up with all at once. Ideally, it's going to accrete over a period of time, and you're going to be refining this training over a period of time. But if you don't know what you want your customer experience to be, then you can't make a checklist and training on the checklist to deliver that experience to the customer. And so, and that's a hard thing, but it can't come from the frontline troops, and it really can't even come from middle management. It's got to come from the people who run the company, who are responsible for the day-to-day responsible for the operation of that company, not necessarily the day-to-day operation, but for the direction that company is proceeding in.
So if someone's in the C-suite, they want to start implementing this, Christopher, where do you want them to go to learn about it and then book a call with you or someone on your team? Maybe you probably have a learning management system to learn about it without even having to talk to someone.
Actually, I have found that, believe it or not, this particular speech does not lend itself well to e-learning, only because it requires there's no substitute for the communication, for being able to look somebody in the eye and say, look, this is what we need to have happen. Yes, we do have a training available for that, but I would much prefer to talk with you. And thank you for asking the question. If any of your listeners are interested in this, all the consultations with us are free. We are happy to talk about anything related to e-learning or learning management systems for till the end of time, pretty much. If you go to flagshiplms.com, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a button to book a call with us. The call is 100% free. You're going to talk with me. And if it's nothing else, just tell me what it is that you're doing, because I'm always interested in different organizations' methods of training and philosophies on training. It helps me professionally develop. And if I can also be of some, additional help to you, I'd be happy to do it. And this is even if your company is small and you're not ready for an organization like us, please still call us, because I am interested in kind of helping you proceed along that training pathway. And I can give you a lot of tips that are going to be cost effective for the small business owner. So don't think that, just having one or two employees in your organization means you can't talk to me. I want to be a resource that you can use.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to listen to this episode a couple times, because you dropped a lot of knowledge about LMS systems. And I was so happy to have you on to learn about it and how it works, from not just what you see on the boring screen, but to how the back end works and how you've developed a successful company helping. How many people do you think you're helping through all these companies? Thousands? Millions?
Well, so that's a great question. If you decide or choose to include all of the people who have taken the individual courses, and we've built well over 1,000 courses. We have built well over 1,000 courses for our clients. That doesn't include the courses that the clients themselves have built. Yeah, I would say over 8 years times the number of clients we've had times the total number of learners, I'd say it's in the millions of people who have been affected by our platform and the training that's on it. Again, not our training, but the platform. Yeah, I think we've managed to touch I bet you we've touched at least 1 million.
Well, the more people you help, the better off you'll be, and that's the name of the game. So happy to have you on. We'll see everyone next time. Bye.
Thanks.